I've been holding off or hesitating reviewing this one for a little bit because I had to let the information sink in. This is a much, not necessarily thicker book than Hunter S. Thompson's other books, but it is definitely, there's a lot of information in it to sink in, and a lot to comprehend in it. I think the book walks a fine balance between letting the author have a final opinion on something, as well as making the reader form an opinion of their own. I think it's a very hard and fine line to actually walk on, without feeling either that he's trapping you into a certain opinion, or that he's being completely ambivalent towards the whole situation. So I think it really excels in that area. The story is that basically Hunter S. Thompson, 1966, infiltrates the Hells Angels and lives among them and writes about his experiences. And during this time, he tries to analyze them psychologically, physically, politically, sexually, and everything in between. And it's really kind of a bravada report, because it really does analyze things from every conceivable angle that one could think of. I'm sure there's something else that I'm missing, of course, don't get me wrong, but I'm sure it's also in there, and I've just forgotten it. It's just that good. This is not what you would normally expect from a Hunter S. Thompson novel, as if you're starting with Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas and The Rum Diary, as I have. This is indeed straight journalism. Though it is participatory, do not go in expecting the same type of experience. You'll still get a little bit of your Hunter S. Thompson kicks here, but it is much more of a thoughtful piece than his other works. I'm not saying that his other books are perhaps less intelligent, but this is definitely more of a contemplative thing. It is less focused on linear narrative and actual full stories than it is perhaps the effects that these stories have on both the reader and the media. And the media in particular is also another large target of Thompson's in this novel, because despite it being called Hell's Angels, much of the novel focuses actually on how the media misconstrues the Hell's Angels in different ways to appeal to their audiences, respectively. And it's very interesting reading about it, because it really, through analyzing the Hell's Angels and the media's treatment of them, Thompson really manages to capture an era in that he captures all the different opinions, and in doing so, managed to get across a clear mosaic of the times. I don't really want to spoil anything or say too much more, because it is something that, while I am recommending, with hesitance, because this will need to be a book you need to sit down, read, really pay attention to, because there is a lot of things to take in, a lot of characters to remember, and a lot of almost small in-jokes to earlier parts of the novel, as well as quotes from different books, from people he's interviewed that relate to the story, the events at hand, sometimes only loosely, but all in some way. And I just want to touch upon that as well. The quotes that he's added in here are fantastic. It's everything from Paradise Lost to a random hooker he's found on the street. And my particular favorite being... Okay, well, I'm not gonna... Oh, actually, no, it's history, so I'm gonna say the final lines of the novel are Kurtz's immortal words, the horror, exterminate all the brutes. And despite that sounding extremely final, it is again a good example of how the author gets across his opinion while still leaving things open-ended. Regarding the characters in this novel, I will say that they're not really as developed, because it's not necessarily the point. This is much more a large-scale portrait rather than it is just a straight character story. Though it is a character study, they are reoccurring characters, Sonny, the main leader, but they are not as important as the messages and the information that Thompson wants to get across, so don't go expecting any kind of deeper revelations about them. Though I will say the postscript added in, because this is journalism, and after the event when he's writing this, more events happen thereafter. He reports them in postscript at the bottom of the pages, perhaps how things ended up in the future, which... Oddly enough, and I'm not sure this is intentional, I'm sure it was in some cases, but not in all of them, it does add quite a bit of political relevance to them, and almost a poignancy to the story, and it brings out some emotion in you, despite it being straight journalism. Now, as for the writing, their writing in and of itself, I have said this is journalism, so this is reporting. Don't go expecting a wild drug trip. Though Thompson clearly records himself doing drugs, drinking booze, far more than he probably should. He got away with it because it's the 60s. I can't imagine if someone was to write that stuff today. I suppose if your writing quality is as up to snuff as Thompson's is, then you can get away with it, but it would be interesting to say the least. Anyway, the writing style itself is extremely developed. Even though this is one of the first books that really launched Thompson's career, it does have a nice level of polish to it. There is no kind of grammatical inconsistencies. Obviously, there's no spelling errors. And being an English specialist, I really kind of notice small grammatical things, or just the perhaps misuse of words, or not the best use of words. But Thompson not only satisfies, but he also goes above and beyond my expectations, which I fully expect and fully appreciate and enjoy, as he always does in all his novels, and Hell's Angels is no exception. In short, if you like Hunter S. Thompson and you are ready for something different, then I would advise picking up Hell's Angels. It's still a good read, it's still got humor in it, but it is a much more thoughtful work. If you still just want to do the drug trips and the hilarity, perhaps another book is for you. I've heard The Curse of Lono is quite good. That's probably the next Hunter S. Thompson book I'm getting, though I'm thinking of picking up The Great Shark Hunt, if only because it's available much more readily than The Curse of Lono. And quite a bit cheaper, may I add. Anyway, I am giving this a full recommendation, very high. I'm not sure that I would prefer that Thompson wrote in this style on a continual basis, though I know he is mainly a political writer, don't get me wrong. But while I will say I do enjoy his other actual novels better, this is certainly of no less quality, and I still highly advise you to pick it up.